Hey everyone, day 25 of Budget Watch 2017. We're down to the wire here. So they're going to be voting on the cigarette fee bill tomorrow, and as well as the budget itself, Senate Bill 860, which is the one without the teacher pay raise. So that's going to come at you tomorrow. I'm not sure what time. I think the House goes in at 9:30. So we'll see what happens there. We had a big crowd this morning. I saw some photos and stopped by around lunchtime and saw a bunch of folks up here for our Shiny Die event. Lots more conversations, lots of folks talking to lawmakers, which is what we're all about. And from the feedback that we heard, it sounds like kind of what we expected. Like, it's going to pass. Probably both will pass. It might be closer than it was in the Senate, but they will almost certainly have 51 votes to pass the cigarette tobacco fee bill and the budget. Lots of concern from us and others, and lawmakers as well, that some of this stuff might be unconstitutional. Like, for example, the cigarette fee bill, for a couple of reasons. Like, one, the Constitution says that they can't pass any revenue-raising bills in the last 5 days. This bill raises revenue. In the JCAB meeting the other night, the response about that was, it's not a revenue bill, it's a tobacco cessation bill, it just happens to raise revenue. And there's some acknowledgement that it is semantics, and they're kind of using some language to get around it, which is funny because they used the opposite of that. They said that had to pass it earlier. They didn't have 76 votes, and so they couldn't do it. It had to be a 76 vote deal, and now they're like, oh, we just need 51 because maybe they just now figured it out, like a way to word it. But a lot of folks, a lot of individuals and groups are certainly concerned it may be unconstitutional. I mean, we all know that the cigarette tax, cigarette fee, whatever, has broad support. And had they done it the right way, so like maybe they had done it as a tax and actually had 76 votes, that's one thing that could be called into question. Also, the fact that they passed it at all, even just because it raises revenue in the last 5 days, puts it on somewhat shaky ground. So that's not cool, because we may end up spending lots of money on legal fees to defend this and prosecute it. It's maybe kind of both sides. I guess really just defend. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So what we heard was some concern among a lot of Republican lawmakers today that some of these bills might be deemed unconstitutional. And what they said that the leadership was telling them is that, so what if it is? If that's the case, then they'll just call a special session and come back in and fix the budget then, at whatever point that is. But I think there's some maybe questionable planning on that, because it could be, like in a couple of, like, several months. Maybe it's in like a year before it gets to the Supreme Court. And if they've ruled against, would they require that it be paid back? Because that could set us up to hundreds of millions of dollars down the road and screw up a future budget. That's not cool. Also, if anyone's ever done a DIY project, you know that you got to do it right the first time. Otherwise, you're going to end up spending more money and more time trying to fix it again. I fixed enough leaky faucets and stuff. There's no way to do a home project without taking 3 trips to Lowe's or Home Depot, and really just trying to maybe mitigate that here at the state capitol. Why would you pass anything if you think there's a good chance it might be overturned by the Supreme Court? That seems like bad lawmaking. Although they do it up here all the time with other social issue bills and stuff too, so who knows. Overall, it seems like a general sentiment among constituents and among lawmakers. Everyone's just weary and ready for this to be over. So here on Facebook, I refer to this as Stockholm Syndrome. It's kind of like everyone's okay with it, and we're all like, it's not so bad. People are just like, okay, this is what we've got, just get it done, and we can go home. Which is not okay. I mean, that's really not, no one should be apathetic about it. It's our stinking state budget, right? Like, this is the most important thing, arguably, that's happened all session. It just happens to happen on the last day, which is what happened last year. It happens on the last day, and it fails to fully fund government. by like several $100 million. But other than that, it's fine, right? So I expect that there will be some healthy debate tomorrow, so certainly tune in. House.gov and watch online should be informative, maybe entertaining, but certainly informative about some things. And the vote may not go down the way we think it's going to. There's certainly a plausible scenario where it doesn't pass and that they force them into special session. I know lots of moderate Republicans really don't like this, and they don't like the idea of coming in their first term and voting for stuff that might get overturned. So if any moderate Republicans happen to be watching this, I just heard from a ton of people that would support you. I think there's a lot of public support that would say, like, hey, listen, like, we know you got to make some hard calls, and maybe one of them is like doing the budget right the first time and not kicking the can down the road. The other kind of thing I've heard a lot today is from lawmakers saying, well, we don't want to do this because it's not going to be good at first, and they just don't want to try it. And that reminds me of like my kids when I try to get them to try some different food, and they're like, I don't want to try it, I'm not going to like it, and then they love it, right? Like, my son never wants green beans until he eats one, and then eats the whole can. Like, he's eaten a whole can of green beans so many times. Sometimes stuff's really delicious. Sometimes it's good. Making, just because you don't think it's going to work or you don't like it, the sound of it at first, doesn't mean it's not the best thing for the state. That's all I'm saying. Maybe I'm comparing tax policy to green beans, which is not a fair comparison. But maybe it is. I don't know. Anyway, so it's been a long day. It's been a long session. Admittedly, everyone's looking forward to the end here. So sometime tomorrow, I will find time to do what might be my last video with my vest on. I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing in the off season. I don't have a boat. I'll just wear it in the kiddie pool with my kiddos and just sit out there. So we'll find out what happens if there's any developments overnight, which is always possible. I'll try to put them out there on Twitter and Facebook. You guys have a good afternoon. Take it easy, and let's make some plans for the summer to get together. I really want Let's Fix This is going to kind of pivot back to our roots and what we're here for, and that is getting groups together, getting people together, and talking about why the state is the way it is. Like education about not just issues, but about structure and process, and why the government runs the way it does, and things that need to be fixed in the long term. So lots of discussion this session about State Question 640, lots of discussion about tax policy and our tax structure as a state. Like, these are really big issues. The state education funding formula, like big top-down things, and that's, until we fix some of those structural things, we're just going to be fighting these little fires all the time. So we really want to do small group things, even like living room things. So start thinking now. If you want to have a cookout on your street and you want to have some of your neighbors come over and you want to have a dinner on your table, and you want someone to come, hit me up. Send us a private message or send me an email, and we'll get myself or maybe someone from our board or someone else that'd be a good fit to come out and talk to you and just discuss things. That's how we got started in the first place. It really was a group of 11 people in my living room last year, just kind of discussing issues without any direction, but just like, how do you go to the Capitol? How do you do this? I know many of you do this at home. I see Daniela just joined in. Hi, Daniela. I know Daniela does this in Norman, that she does some groups down there, like in people's houses or coffee shops, just to talk about like how the government runs, both the state level and the national level. We try to focus on city and state stuff here, but find people in your community and we can help you maybe connect and do that kind of stuff, because that's how we fix this. We really need a more informed and educated like electorate, like voters, people. We need people that understand how things work, and if we can try to help shed some light on it for you, then you can help shed some light on it for your neighbors or your friends or your family. And the more that we understand how things work, the more likely we are to be engaged, the more likely we are to be involved, and maybe the more likely we are to make decisions that are beneficial for the state, and not just for specific special interests. So that's my piece. You guys have been great. We'll talk to you tomorrow, perhaps, for the last time this session in the Orange Vest. So have a good night. Thanks a lot. Thanks for all you do.